Hi, this is Marcy from Quick Start Piano for Adults, here to talk about the next step for beginners. This is for students who have finished our 6-week beginners course and are wondering, what do I do next? Where to go? By now, you've probably learned a little bit about yourself at the piano, some of your likes and dislikes. Maybe you really enjoy reading notes and want to get stronger at that. Maybe you don't enjoy reading notes, or you find it tedious and too difficult of an obstacle to get to the music that you really want to play. Maybe you really enjoy classical music, or you really like the more modern sounds that we have been making at the piano. Maybe you want to do all of it. You like everything. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. I think students learn best by playing the music they most want to play. That said, sometimes if you have too many choices, it can be overwhelming, especially near the beginning. So with that in mind, I've narrowed down our learning tracks to 2 general options, which I'm going to call A and B. And keep in mind that these options can always be modified or expanded. They're just meant to give you some structure and help you to narrow your focus. So let's talk about option A. Option A is note reading and chording combination approach. So we will keep improving your note reading skills. We'll be reading new music and learning new pieces. At the same time, we'll continue learning new chord scales and patterns. Initially, these will be taught by rote, just as they were in the beginner class, but eventually, as you progress, you'll start seeing these same patterns in your written music. And because all music is composed of these same patterns, which is why we're learning them. So by the time you see these in your written music, you'll have a huge head start because your fingers will have already been playing them since the very first lesson of that 6-week course. All right, so that is option A. And option B is chords with a minimal note reading approach. So we will focus on the music you most want to play, but our entry point will be chord scales and patterns. And we'll do just enough note reading to get the melodies that you want to play into your fingers. Generally, this will mean right hand treble clef, and we will also use reading helps like alpha notes, where they write the little alphabet note inside the note head. We'll use our chord scales and patterns to play the music that you most want to play. That could mean classic rock, oldies, country music, Broadway tunes. It could even mean familiar classical melodies, because again, even with classical music, all music is made up of the same basic components. So those are the 2 general pathways forward from here: a focus more on note reading but still with chording, or a focus more on chording with just the minimal amount of note reading. And again, no one is locked into any one path. Things can be modified at any time, and in fact, it's quite common for your interest to change as we go along, as you learn more and you learn more about your own preferences. All right, so that's the big picture. For the next part of the video, we'll dive deeper and explore more specifics of each option and the choices available to you.
All right, so let's take a closer look at option A and option B. And we'll start with option A, note reading and chording. And I have 3 choices for a note reading book. The first one, let me change my view here, is Wonderkey's Rock Repertoire, Book 1. And I am not free to share what's inside the book, but they do have recordings here that are public. So these are as simple as the songs that you were playing in your book for the 6-week introduction class. And they are mostly in C position with C, each hand in C home bass. And they have a much more modern sound than the books that were coming out of the piano pronto sampler, which is what you were using in the beginner class. So that is the main difference. You'll have the same general notes covered, but the sound is a little more modern. And what you're hearing here is those high notes, that's the student part, and the low notes is the teacher part. However, the teacher part is very chord based, so I can also teach you how to play an approximation of that teacher part. based on chording and playing chords and patterns and home bass positions. So there's a whole book full of these. There's also a book 2 which is in G home bass, and they're similar levels. Book 2 might be a little bit harder. I'll just give you a taste of what things sound like here. Let me see if I can remember if there was one that was a little different, a little more upbeat. And again, we can make this as hard or as easy as we would like, depending on if we want to tackle that duet part, the teacher part there. Let's listen to the vortex. So that gives you a general idea. You can go to this address up here, wonderkeys.com teen/backing/tracks if you want to listen to more. And if you like this sound, this more contemporary, modern sound of the way they're using the chord progressions, you might enjoy playing the Wonderkeys book. All right, and also I did get number 2. Let's take a gander at a couple of these. Sort of similar flowing style, lyrical piano. They're not all that way. I can't remember which ones are most upbeat. I'll try one more and we'll move on. You can hear a little syncopation in there. Alright, so wonderkeys.com. And our next choice, if you want something a little bit more traditional, is Piano Pronto Prelude. And you have, if you've done our 6-week class, you've actually played a couple of these songs, or more than a couple already, because the sampler pack that we use for that class borrows from Prelude and also Keyboard Kickoff, which is slightly easier. So if you felt that it was too easy, this Prelude book, you still might want to try it out because it's a library book for us and you can borrow it and you can go straight to the end if you want to. And the book that comes after that is called Movement 1. And then after that it goes Movement 2, Movement 3. So if Prelude is too easy, you could always go to Movement 1, but it might be good just to cover your bases. And let's take a peek inside the pages that they are showing us. And if I could fast forward, I would. See, some of these you're going to recognize that we've already done. And right hand starts out with more notes, and then we put in extra chords, and eventually they start writing in the chords too. So some of this will look familiar, but there's more in here than what we did in our class. And we've got some dotted notes, and it just gets gradually they're introducing new concepts to you. And these come with backing tracks also. I have a studio license for those. A lot of these very traditional pieces, some classical, but mostly folk music, and no popular music or more contemporary sounding unless they make the backing track sound contemporary. So let's take a listen to this. Alright, now I'm not sure how to make this stop. Alright, so if you enjoyed the music that we had in the sampler pack, the written out music that came from Piano Pronto, you might enjoy continuing with this series. And then there's one other series which a lot of my students enjoy, and that is the Faber Piano Adventures. And we're going to be looking at the adults. It looks like I lost my page that I had here. The all-in-one adult book 1. And the thing about the all-in-one adult book, about any of the adult books, is that they will have a lot more in them and they will get more difficult more quickly. So actually, by the time you get to the end of book 1, it's going to be looking more like the end of movement 1, which comes after Prelude. So it takes you longer to finish a book. I guess you don't have to pay as much. Or you don't have to buy as many books. So it kind of depends on if you want the motivation of being able to finish a book quickly, or if you would rather have one book that lasts you for a long time. So since I have lost the visual on this one, let's go back and listen to some of their backing tracks. They have their backing tracks for free online. You go to their site, you can see it up at the top there. So they try to put a more modern twist on the backing track, but the Amazing Grace itself is traditional. And you can see in the contents here, they've got a lot of the same type songs as the other book does. And partly that is because they want you to be familiar with these songs, and partly because most of these method books don't include pop songs because they have to pay royalties for those, and it's too expensive. There's not enough margin. So again, there's just a lot in here. It's getting a lot harder. You'll start to learn some of your scales. You can learn the same things in Piano Pronto Prelude and Movement 1 and moving on. It's just a little bit different format. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Sheet Music Plus, since I lost the page that I had queued up. And we're going to type in Faber Piano Adventures Adults All-in-One. See what comes up so that you can get some sample pages of what it looks like. And that is book 1. Oh, CD, that doesn't help. Let's try that again. There we go. I see it right here. Okay, Piano Course Book 1. This is what we want. Alright, so they've got their contents there. This is what the book looks like. All-in-one means that they've got workbook pages and ear training and chord exercises all in one book, so you don't have to keep switching back from your theory book to your exercise book to your method book. Oh, and it looks like they do have some pop music, Lion Sleeps Tonight, which is kind of nice. Not a ton of it, but a little bit. And good old, we've got a lead sheet in here for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. So that's something you can explore. You can go to sheetmusicplus.com and type this in, and they'll only let you see a few pages because they need to protect their copyright. Piano Pronto lets you see more pages, but they have that big sample word on there. So feel free to explore those. So those are the options for method type books, reading, teaching you to read. And then we've got a series which is more geared towards familiar melodies, melodies that you've heard before. And the series that I really like for beginners is Famous and Fun. And the one that I have pulled up is Famous and Fun for Adults. And book 1 is the level that you will want. We'll take a peek. And you'll see they're using the same notes that we have used in our beginning class. House of the Rising Sun, we played that with chords, and now you get to play it with notes. Up Where We Belong, Colors of the Wind, they just give you a little snatch. These small notes down here, that's the teacher part. You don't have to worry about that. But again, I have made chord sheets for this particular book, for the adult book, that will teach you how to play this part, or an approximation of it, by using chord symbols and your home bases. So that's another reason I really like this book. We get extra bang for our buck. Okay, so again, you can go to Sheet Music Plus and do a little bit more looking for that. And the Famous and Fun, there are a whole series of these. There's like 5 or 6 choices in book 1. I'm recommending the Famous and Fun for Adults pop because I have spent a lot of time making some chord sheets. But if your eye was caught by some of the other titles, they would be appropriate too. Anything for level 1. All right, so the first thing was a method book. And then we have some Famous and Fun choice for you. So you've got 2 things in your bag so far. And then the next thing that I'm going to recommend, actually we're going to wait for that for a minute, and I'm going to switch my window and show you this right here. So this is something that you will have access to. This is more of a reference book, and here's the table and contents, and it's got exercises and scales and learning about chords, and we will incorporate these as we go, as we need them, based on the songs that you're learning and based on your interest level in chords. So this is the third thing in your bag, and I have PDFs, and I can print things at the studio, so you can get those from me, or you can get them through the email as a PDF. Alright, so let's switch back to the Chrome browser, and now we're going to talk about the 4th thing. This is optional, but if you can do it, it is very beneficial. So Piano Maestro or Piano Marvel. Piano Maestro would be our first choice because it is included in your membership. I have access for all of my students. I have a subscription for my studio. So this will not cost you a thing. It's there waiting for you, but you do need to have an iPad in order to use it. And there's a whole bunch of information at joytunes.com, but the basic idea is that there are thousands of songs in here. You push play, and it will actually listen to you play your piano through the microphone and tell you what notes you got right and what notes you got wrong and whether you're ahead of the beat or behind the beat. It can't tell you if you're doing the right finger numbers or if you have a good hand position or technique, but that's what a teacher is for. So there's a bunch of information here about the app. And I've actually made a separate video about that app, and so I'll link to that, and I won't spend any more time on it here. So Piano Maestro, very good idea. If you can do it, if you've got an iPad, I would definitely take advantage of it. And then if you don't have an iPad, have no interest in getting an iPad, Piano Marvel is another good option. The only trick on Piano Marvel is that it is subscription based, and I don't have any way to pay for that for my whole studio. So you would be needing to pay for that, and I believe it's $12.99 a month. But you have access to literally 20,000 songs and their method, which is leveled. And the trick on this one is that you will need to be able to plug into a digital piano through a MIDI cable. They're working on that audio recognition through the microphone, but it's not ready quite yet. We're hoping in the next few months that it will be ready. But it's a similar idea to Piano Maestro, but actually the levels go up higher. And there's a bunch of published books that are actually in here. So if you're paying that subscription fee, that's what you're paying for, is for all the copyrighted material in here. Lots and lots of stuff, and I have made a separate video on this one about how to use it, so I'll link to that one as well. Alright, so that takes care of our option A. Now we're going to go look at option B. And I just have to find out where I put my sign. Okay, option B, if you're focusing more on chording and just enough note reading to get by, to get us where we want to be. And there's going to be a little crossover with this. So the first book that I'm going to recommend that you start with, let's get out of the Piano Marvel here, is Meridie Winter's Chord Crash Course, Book 1. And so that will be the first item in your bag to get started, and she's got some sample pages. And this book was made for people, she actually made it for singers, songwriters, people who primary instrument wasn't piano, but they needed to learn just enough piano to be able to play for their creative music making endeavors. So she made it as accessible as possible. She's also used it for special learners, people with learning challenges, that sort of thing too. So you can see here that she does have the music on the staff, but she also has little alpha notes. So everything is written in. And then in addition to that, she also has diagrams. So you don't have to know how to read music in order to follow what's going on in this book. And she starts off with our C home bass and the C triad, which you'll recognize that we already did in our beginner's course. So this is a great book to get started on, and I would definitely recommend that if you're doing option B. And then the other book that we would recommend is the Scales and Chords collection, which I already showed you. I'm not going to try to switch the screen. I just had the tables of contents, and that's just a reference with lots of exercises and scales. The more different ways that I can present scales, it will help, because sometimes the first way you read about something doesn't click, makes it challenging. It doesn't quite make sense. So the more different ways we can present it, we'll find the one that clicks for you, that makes it easy. All right. So I'm going to go back to talk about this famous and fun book. So first thing in your bag was Meridie Winter's Chord Crash Book 1, and then the second one is our Chord and Scales collection, which is a PDF that I'll give you. And then the third thing, you would want to choose either the chord sheets that go with this famous and fun book, which are sheets that I made, or the super easy songbook, or you could do both if you wanted to do both. So if you're doing the chord sheets for this famous and fun book, you still might want to have the book. You can borrow it from our lending library just for your reference. And since I already talked about that, I'm going to go over to 3-chord songs. So super easy songbook is a format that looks like this. And you'll notice they've got the little alpha notes again, which makes it easier to read. And then they show you, these are the 3 chords that they're going to have you use all the way through the piece, and those are the only ones that you need. They don't give you any fingering helps here, and if you're moving your hand around, that can be uncertain what to do, but we can work on that together in the coaching group of what fingers you're going to use for which notes. And here is the table of contents for this book. And there's a 3-chord songbook and a 4-chord songbook, and I don't think one is really harder than the other, because the harder part is not the chords. The harder part is moving around on the right hand, and that goes song by song. It just matters how much the melody jumps around and how fast it goes. So I would choose this book based on which songs are the most interesting. So let's take a look at the list for this book here. And again, you could always go to the address up at the top, shemusicplus.com, and type in the 4-chord songbook, super easy songbook. And there's the second page. So they've got some oldies, some more modern ones. It's kind of a mix. Knocking on Heaven's Door. All right, so if you're doing option B, you're going to have at least 3 things in your bag. Meridie Winter's Chord Crash Book, my Chord and Scales collection, and then either the famous and fun Book 1 chord sheets or a super easy songbook. And also, I would point out, if you type super easy songbook in here, you're going to get a whole bunch more choices. I picked the 3-chord and the 4-chord songs because I have those in my lending library. And it's a nice cross section, but if there's something else that you're just in love with, you might want to do that instead. And it would be approximately the same level. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is if you have an itch or a dream to play a particular song, you might want to check our online database. I have a spreadsheet of over 500 songs that are in the books that we have in our lending library. And I have it organized by the book and by the level so that you'd be able to look for a song. Let's say you did want to play Knocking on Heaven's Door. And it's like, does she have that one in her lending library? You can go to that database. It's alphabetical. Look for Knocking on Heaven's Door and find out which books that I have that it's in and which ones would be appropriate for your level. So we have that as a resource as well. So that was kind of a detailed tour. You should be getting an idea of how you might want to organize your next steps in piano. And if you are uncertain which direction to go, by all means contact me, let me know, say I need help, I'm not sure what to do, and we will work it out together. So it's exciting. I'm really excited to work with you on your next steps in piano. So talk to you soon.